Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers.
Experience is not about the publisher, it is about us, the authors.
Well, good morning. Glad to have you with us this morning again. We're going to jump ahead a little bit in our book, Lucius, A Soldier's Journey. We talked a little bit yesterday about Chloe. That was her name, the new girl, the slave girl that Lucius bought. He purchased her freedom, and she has decided to stay with them. She's part of the family now. And we'll jump ahead a little bit. Finally, the orders did come through for Lucius's transfer. He's gone by ship, he and his 3 servants with him. They've gone by ship to Caesarea. They've landed at Caesarea. They've met Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate has given Lucius orders. He wants Lucius to destroy the zealots that have literally taken control of the road that leads to Capernaum. And he's given almost an impossible task. He's got a very small force. And of course, he follows his orders. He conscripts more men for the battle. He becomes very good friends with the rabbi. He helps, he builds their synagogue, which was in terrible disrepair. He's befriended by many in Capernaum who see that he is a man of honor, that he is a just man. He's a Roman, but he's not cruel. He's a just man. And the battle takes place. In the battle, his servant, Mark, who is his valet, is grievously wounded. He's brought back to the citadel with the other wounded men. And much to Lucius's surprise, townspeople came with wagons to help evacuate the wounded and bring back the dead. They were not conscripted. They volunteered of their own accord when they were told. Oh, I already have a question. Ethan Lee commented, "Hi, good to be here again. Good to have you. Good to have you, Ethan." So now we go and we see that Lucius is very shocked that these Jews have, of their own accord, come to the aid of Romans. And now we see he goes into the citadel and he finds that the Hebrew doctors, Dr. Samuel, is still there. The Jewish doctor is in the citadel, which shocks him because he was sure no Jew would ever come into a place like that. But he came and he's helping to minister to the wounded. And we're going to take up the scenario now. Lucius is in a quandary. He can't understand. Why would a Jew come into the citadel? Why would a Jewish doctor come into this place where the enemy is, the dreaded Roman? Why would he come and actually help Roman soldiers? Lucius just was in a state of confusion. So now we're going to pick up the scenario. Lucius has returned to the citadel, and Dr. Samuel soon appeared standing before Lucius. Commander, the young man shall sleep now. I have given him sleeping powder. He has come through an awful ordeal today. However, Dr. Silva and I are both confident that he shall recover. Dr. Samuel speaks to Lucius concerning Mark, who is injured. Lucius thanked the doctor and watched him with great interest. He ministered so kindly and gently to men that he should hate. Suddenly Lucius was jolted from his contemplation by the familiar voice of his old friend, Dr. Silva. Many of these boys are alive tonight because of that man. We have 54 wounded men here, many of them seriously wounded, as you yourself have witnessed. Without good help, at least half of these men would have died. It is true. Is it true you did not conscript the wagons or the doctor? Lucius asked. I conscripted no one. The rabbi and the doctor presented our plight to the people, and the people responded of their own accord. When the wounded were brought to the citadel, the good doctor offered his service. Thank you, my good friend. You and the good doctor have done great work. Lucius looked up and saw the slaves fanning the wounded, bringing up fresh water, doing errands for the doctors. Lucius determined to thank them later. Sweat was rolling off Lucius. The heat was unbearable. Lucius walked over to an open bow slit in the hope that he could get some relief. Suddenly, Lucius heard a voice speaking softly. He turned his head to see Dr. Samuel standing by the next bow slit. He looked into the darkness and did not see Lucius walk beside him. Lucius strained to hear what he was saying. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. God of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, hear my prayer. Send a refreshing, life-giving breeze to comfort these helpless men in their suffering. Remember that they too are your creation, beloved and yearned for by you, our Father God. Lucius could not believe what his ears had heard. A Jew praying for the welfare of an enemy. Lucius determined, I must speak with this man. Lucius once again went over to Mark's cot. He sat beside him, lost in deep thought, when suddenly the loud roll of thunder shocked him back to reality. Lucius looked toward the bow slits and could see flashes of lightning. Then he heard the rain begin to fall. When the rain was ended, a considerable breeze began to blow from the Galilee. It poured through the bow slits into the infirmary. The breeze was fragrant, fresh, and cool. The foul smell that hung low in the room quickly dissipated, and many of the men who had been so restless in sleep seemed to relax as the cooling breeze washed over them. Dr. Silva called the men together. My friends, the men are resting now. Oh, I have a question. Elos Youngs commented, good day, Pastor Michael. Good to be here, day 5. Good to have you on day 5. I'm glad you're with us this morning. Dr. Silva called the men together. My friends, the men are resting now. There is nothing more we can do for them tonight. Come to my quarters and let us share a cup of wine. Dr. Samuel spoke up. Oh, I have another one. Penny Posser commented, "Hi, Michael. How's it been? How's it been since yesterday? Hope you're well. I'm fine and feeling good. Good to have you with us, Penny. Glad to have you this morning." Dr. Samuel spoke up. "Silva, you know I cannot drink your wine." "I know," Dr. Silva retorted, "but I have Hebrew wine." "Hebrew wine?" Dr. Samuel gasped in disbelief. "Yes, come to my quarters and see." As the men retired to Dr. Silva's quarters, Lucius remained behind. He called the slaves, who quickly gathered around him, and they bowed. "What do you require, Commander?" Lucius smiled. "I just wanted to thank you for your hard work today. Your kind attention that you have bestowed upon these men has moved my heart. Dr. Silva has said there is no more we can do tonight. Go now and get some rest." The slaves bowed and turned to leave, but as they left, Lucius gave to each a gold coin. As Lucius came to Dr. Silva's quarters, he met Gaius at the door. "You're spoiling those slaves," Gaius protested. "My good general," Lucius answered, "my father had a saying." "What is it?" Gaius inquired. "Oh, Sean Gibson commented, "Welcome back, Michael. Happy to see you again. Happy to see you, Sean." Oh, I have another one. Joyce C. Kelly commented, "It takes courage and sharp memory to write something like this." Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joyce. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I enjoy reading it. God gave me a great story. He really did. My father used to say, "You can never spoil a good man, for his worth exceeds all the world's gold." As Lucius and Gaius entered the room, Dr. Silva was showing off the wine skin with its Hebrew writing. Dr. Samuel laughed. "You have expensive taste. That is the costliest wine in the market." "Well, of course," Dr. Silva retorted. "I will serve nothing but the best to my friends." The men sat around the table, and Dr. Silva filled each glass, and the men drank and talked. As they talked, Lucius thanked Dr. Samuel for his service that day. "Dr. Silva tells me, had it not been for your help and intervention, as many as half of the men could have perished. However, I must confess I am confused. Wagons came to our aid, having not been conscripted. You entered a Roman fortress and treated Roman wounded in violation of your law. I must confess to you, good doctor, I am confused beyond measure. Would your compliance not be looked upon as treason? Would you not be considered a traitor to your people, having aided the hated invader? What motivated you? What motivated the rabbi and the townspeople?" Dr. Samuel sat in silence for a moment. "You ask a legitimate question. I suppose there was a time when those wagons would have had to be conscripted by force. I know there was a time when the only way I would have come to this place was at the point of a sword." "What changed your mind?" Lucius asked. "A man I met, a man who changed my point of view on many things." "A man?" Lucius questioned. "Who is this man?" "About a year ago, my good friend the rabbi had heard of this Nazarene preacher. He was preaching in an area north of Galilee. The rabbi, being my close friend, asked if I should wish to go with him and hear the man. My curiosity was aroused, and I agreed to go." "Oh, Stephanie, good morning," commented, "Bring on the insightful discussions." "Okay, we sure will." About a year, my curiosity was aroused, and I agreed to go hear the man known to many as the teacher. We dared not travel the main roads for fear of thieves, so the rabbi and I took the wilderness. The trip was long but safer. We found the teacher and his followers in the foothills north of Galilee. He preached to a great multitude that had gathered. How big were the crowds? Lucius questioned. Thousands, answered the doctor. How strange, I've never heard of this man, Lucius pondered. No man ever spoke like this man. Even my friend the rabbi marveled at his knowledge of the scriptures. The rabbi confessed that the teacher had shed light on the scriptures that even he did not understand. After the teacher was finished preaching, people brought unto him all manner of sick folk. What did he do for them? Dr. Silva inquired. He healed every single one of them. Are you sure they were really sick? Asked Dr. Silva. I'm sure. I too shared your skepticism, being a doctor, and moved in for a closer look. I saw people in advanced stages of disease healed. Before my eyes, I saw people with limbs whose limbs were so shriveled and twisted. Such illness could not be erroneously fabricated. I heard a leper cry out, unclean, unclean. I witnessed the crowd disperse in panic. George Carpenter commented, so this is the turning point of Lucius's life. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is where the ball gets rolling. The man removed some of his leprous rags to reveal the extent of his disease. The flesh was falling off. It was horrible to behold. The man stood before the teacher and begged him for healing. The teacher put his hands upon the man. The teacher touched a leper, Dr. Silva cried out. Margaret Sherrill commented, Lucius finally goes to an adventure and actually meets Pontius Pilate. Interesting. Oh, yes. He and Pontius Pilate would have quite a relationship together. Actually, he liked Pontius Pilate. He thought he was a man who was actually trying to do some good. The man stood before the teacher and begged him for healing. The teacher put up his hands and touched the man. He touched a leper, Dr. Silva cried out. Yes? And he said, be thou clean. I witnessed that man cleansed. His skin became like the flesh of a newborn child. I don't doubt you, good doctor. But how can these things be? Dr. Silva questioned. Many believe he is the promised one, the Messiah, the promised Redeemer of Israel. Does he wish to make himself a king? Lucius questioned. Dr. Samuel shook his head. The teacher has made it very clear that his kingdom is not of this world. The only conquest he seeks is the conquest of men's hearts and minds. When the crowds were sent away, some would stay to question the teacher. The rabbi and I stayed to listen. Some of the people had honest questions. However, some sought only to catch the teacher in his words. But why would anybody want to do that? Lucius asked. This man has told the truth. He's healed the sick. Why would anyone wish to make a fool of him? Because, my good commander, wherever truth is, there will be those who wish to refute it. Lucius nodded. Of a truth, my friend, he confirmed. A lawyer in the crowd asked the teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And what did the teacher answer? Gaius inquired. The teacher answered, what does the law say? The lawyer responded, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, body, strength, and your neighbor as yourself. The teacher answered, you have answered well. Do this and live. However, the lawyer failed to do this. He had not kept the law. So in an effort to justify himself, he asked, who is my neighbor? Dr. Samuel sat in silence for a moment as tears rolled down his cheeks. The story the teacher related to us that night forever changed my life and the rabbi's life. Will you share the story with us, Dr. Lucius asked? Dr. Samuel nodded and began. There was a man traveling to the city of Jericho when he fell among thieves. The thieves beat the man severely and robbed him of all he had. They went so far as to strip him of his clothes, and then they cast him into a ditch and left him for dead. As time passed, a Pharisee, a ruler of the temple, passed by, witnessing the plight of the poor injured fellow. He passed by on the other side of the road. You see, he wished not to defile himself by touching a bloody body. What kind of holy man would do such a thing? Dr. Silva cried out. Dr. Samuel continued the story. The next man to happen by that way was a priest. He heard the man's faint cry for help, and feeling the man was past all help, walked on by. Has no one any pity for this poor fellow? Lucius asked. The next traveler to pass that way was a Samaritan. I thought it strange at the time that the teacher should use a Samaritan in his story. Even those who were gathered to hear the story gasped when the teacher said Samaritan. Why so? Asked Gaius. Because Samaritans are hated of the Jews. The Samaritans are a mixed race. They are half Jew and half Gentile. The Jews look upon them as half-breeds. The Samaritan heard the poor man's faint cry for help. Finding the poor man in such deplorable condition, he took pity on him. The Samaritan poured oil upon his wounds and dressed them. He took his own robe and clothed his nakedness. And then he put the man on his animal and he took him to the nearest inn. The next morning, as the Samaritan was leaving, he gave the innkeeper money. He gave him instructions to care for the man until he was well. The Samaritan assured the innkeeper that any money that may be owed he would repay upon his return. The teacher then asked the lawyer a question. Of these three men, who was the neighbor to this poor man? The lawyer was so arrogant in his answer, he would not use the word Samaritan. He simply answered, I suppose the one who showed him mercy. What did the teacher answer? Dr. Silva asked. You go and do the same, Dr. Samuel answered. That whole night, that rabbi and I considered the story. What was the teacher telling us? The entire journey back to Capernaum, the rabbi and I discussed it. Then finally the meaning dawned as a new day in our hearts. What was the meaning? Lucius asked. Dr. Samuel sat in silence. Tears coursed down his cheeks and dripped from his beard. My neighbor is anyone who needs my help. It matters not if they be Jew, Greek, Roman, slave, or free. If they need my help, they are my neighbor. Those wounded men out there are more than soldiers. They are my neighbors. At that moment, Dr. Samuel was not the only man with tears coursing down his cheeks. Lucius then spoke up. I wish my father were here tonight and could have heard this story. All his life he sought the truth. I believe the essence of this story is the truth he sought. If men could all look upon one another in this way, we could hang up our swords. I would hear this teacher one day, Dr. Samuel, Lucius proclaimed. Perhaps one day you will. I have heard he is traveling in this direction, Dr. Samuel gave an answer. Dr. Silva clutched Dr. Samuel's shoulder. Go home and get some rest. You look exhausted, Dr. Silva exclaimed. Dr. Samuel laughed. I look exhausted. I think you need to look at yourself in the mirror. I think you need to look yourself in the mirror, he said. I'll sleep here on this cot, Dr. Silva explained. I have some patients in the morning, but I shall return in the afternoon to help with the men. Thank you, my friend. Many men in this room owe their lives to you, Dr. Silva exclaimed, embracing Dr. Samuel. Lucius went to check on Mark for a last time. Lucius walked over to the cot where Mark slept peacefully. He looked so very pale and frail. So many of the men looked so very frail. Lucius gently stroked Mark's cheek as tears filled his eyes. He thought just how close he had come to losing him. He bent over and gently kissed him on the cheek. "Good night, my son. Sleep well. I shall see you in the morning." Lucius grabbed his helmet. "Come, Gaius. We'll walk Dr. Samuel home." "I'll be all right," Dr. Samuel protested. "No, Doctor," Lucius exclaimed. "Some of the surviving zealots may have taken refuge in the city. I'll take no chance with your safety, especially after all you've done for our men today." As the men began their journey, Gaius asked if Dr. Samuel had any more of the teacher's stories. Dr. Samuel smiled. "General Gaius, that was a day I'll never forget." After seeing Dr. Samuel safely home, Lucius and Gaius made their way back to the citadel. As they reached the citadel road, Lucius spoke. "Get some rest, Gaius. We have a busy day tomorrow." "Oh," Stephanie commented, "Interesting what what doctors look like during Lucius's time." "Oh yes. Well, they didn't have all of the expertise that we have today. They didn't have all the medications and all the sophisticated healing apparatus that we have today, but they still were dedicated to healing the sick to the best of their ability. Of course, these men were dealing with wounded men. I dare say they were probably wearing smocks. They were probably covered in blood. It was a rather, well, you can ask any man who's a medic in the military today. It's a rather unpleasant and ugly thing when you're dealing with soldiers who are wounded. And I thank God for those people. But this story has really struck a chord now with Lucius. Lucius has never met the teacher, but his interest has been aroused. And he wants to hear him. Now, tomorrow, we're going to see that Lucius, Travis comments, "I'm very hopeful that this book has a sequel." Well, I'll tell you what, I'm working on another book right now. It has nothing to do with Lucius, but I have been working on a sequel for Lucius. And the Lord's kind of given me a few extra thoughts, and I'd like to write them down. I'd like to finish Lucius's story. But it's amazing how God works, because Lucius wants to hear this man. And when he goes to report to Pilate in Caesarea concerning the battle and the outcome of the battle, Pilate's going to give him a mission. And this mission Pilate's going to give him is to go find out about this Nazarene preacher who's been preaching in the wilderness to thousands of people. Because, of course, any man who preaches to thousands of people in the wilderness, well, what's he preaching? Is he preaching sedition? I mean, if such a man has that many followers, if he says, "Let's go kill the Romans," he's already got an army. So anybody who gathered large crowds was considered a threat to Rome. So Pilate gives Lucius this mission. "I want you to go listen to this man. Find out what he's telling these people. See if he's a threat to us." So Lucius wants to hear the teacher, and now he's going to hear the teacher thanks to an order from his superior. So isn't it amazing how God works? God works so many things behind the scenes because God knows. God is sovereign and he knows what he's doing. Well, I see our time is up. Now you can buy the book if you look at my website is there. You can buy it on my website. You can buy it from Barnes and Noble, our good friends at Reader's Magnet, or you can also get it through Amazon. But I'm sure glad to have you. You honor me with your presence. You honor me with your questions. It's a joy to be able to sit before you and present my book. God bless you all. Thank you so much for listening and for being part of this booth this morning. You honor me greatly, and I'm very moved and touched at your interest. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. I'll see you Monday, same time. God bless you, and have a great day.